make a choice. Sometimes in life, you have to find your voice. Sometimes in life, you need your friends. And now's the time to give your ears a cleanse. We ramble on about movies. Ramble on about movies. With clever, arrogant, handsome Dave. Ramble on, it goes away.
Hoy hoy! Oh, welcome to a brand new edition of the Ramble On About Movies as part of the Pachunkin Network. Woo!
I was just gonna let you keep going.
Hey, I'm feeling good. I just got done, shoveling snow because we're in a winter wonderland. It's great, isn't it?
I'm not even going to tell you what the temperature was
you're
today.
Yeah, like all that snow you're probably missing. I have it now.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
Mm.
So across the internet for me, as always, it's clever Eric Muller,
And across the internet for me, as always, is the one and only handsome Dan Nye.
and we are going to be joined as always. We are trying to get as many voices as we can, and I'm always honored and flattered and just humbled by this man joining us because I love his takes. Yes.
Okay.
With your presence here, that's Maxwell Haddad as well.
Like this is where we normally are when you're here, Max. We got to get up to here.
Yeah, like
Okay.
it's we have to elevate our game to you.
Yes.
I don't know if you know, but you kind of bring up the whole. The rising tides raising all ships. You know what I mean? Like
you are
you're
the
saying
moon
I
of the PJ Campbell Network. That's
I
what
legitimize it.
yes.
Yes.
We've been very illegitimate for years.
so many years.
So the fact that we have legitimacy now. Like I'm a little bit unsure. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Pancake hands.
Hey.
I don't know what that means. So we do have a lot of stuff. Wow. This is, and we already have, I love that we have people too. And we're already talking. We know this guy. That guy's a fun guy.
Oh,
He's lurking. He's probably in this room.
I love
somewhere.
his
We just
scarf.
don't know. What's going on, Drew? Welcome. Yes. And he does. Nathan, you are right. He 100% classes up the joint. And I'm never going to be annoyed that there's psych references popping up in our chat already. Thanks,
Never.
Anton. So there was, and like I said this a couple of days ago on Twitter where I was like,
You ready, other Eric? Let's do this.
just checking in. It's better than a mirror. It's so much better than a mirror.
Mhm.
I was a little, I wouldn't say concerned, but on Monday or Tuesday, I'm like, are we going to have enough for a show? And then there's been boom, boom,
Right.
boom, 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 boom.
And then the last 2 days happened and
Yes.
content explosion in the face.
Content explosion in the face. We all have different names given to what we're going to be talking about today. We have more information, more news to discuss than just what we're doing. Somebody wanted us to go to a big one last, so I'll do a little bit earlier first. The first thing I really wanted to mention, that the first show note I made for today was the team from Solo, and I'm not shy. I didn't really like Solo, but two of the best parts of Solo, Donald Glover and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, they're going to be starring in a reimagining of Mr. and Mrs. Smith for Amazon. And I read that and my soul sheared.
It was in a pan and it got nicely sheared.
I said sheared, but you can sear it if you want. I could use a little crisping.
Yeah, that's how it sounded like to me. You put some butter in there and you just flipped it around.
Hey, buddy. This is one of our friends from Community when we put together our bracket. Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming out.
Hello.
Great follow on Twitter if you haven't. Follow Communities, not Communities.
Oh, yeah.
But, we've had lots of discussions about Community after our bracket from last year. But I mean, outside of things being amazing about this story, do you have other thoughts?
No, I mean, I'm fully excited. I'm wanting to see how they're going to do this because you have two of the best minds out there in this business working together. So they can go I'm wanting to see what direction they're going to go with it. Are they going to try to be, more comedy? Are they trying to do like a more dark comedy? That's what I want to see. I want to see what these two creative geniuses do when they work together and bring us a product like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting too, just because I think those creative minds, and I saw not long after that, like Donald Glover also went on his Instagram and announced it, which he only uses social media
Rarely
at this point. Yeah, at this point in time. And it was interesting to see, like, it was just 4 stories in a row, and the first story was him, the second story was Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and then it just said Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Amazon, and like that was it. And it's probably enough, because the meteoric rise that they both have had, and to see them working together makes me really happy.
I look forward to see his British accent and see if they go it that way.
I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm sure it would be phenomenal. Would you have strong feelings about this, Max? Or are you just like, hey, Sunshine Brigade over here?
No, I mean, I think they're both genius creators. I think they have both excelled in film and television. Atlanta and Fleabag are singularly brilliant works of modern comedy television that I hate this term, but they're sort of auteur television, where you have one creative voice who's acting, writing, directing, and the idea of the two of them coming together to create a show based on what's frankly a very fun but inconsequential piece of cinema is fascinating. But the concept behind it has so much potential to be sexy and fun. And although Phoebe Waller-Bridge was only a voice in Solo, I think her and Donald had great chemistry. So the opportunity for them to expand on that when they get to actually look at each other in the eye and write it could be a lot of fun.
Did she do mocap for that or no?
Nope.
I don't believe so.
Okay. I wasn't sure. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, I think she just did voice work for it.
And in the same breath, that just was announced today. So you also had Donald Glover inking, I think they said, an 8-figure deal with Amazon. So he's going to be getting over $10 million. Probably, if I had to guess, I just looked up the thing, and I just looked up the story, and I think it might have been a first look deal. So he is going to be very set for a long time, and I'm very happy that we're going to be getting more and more stuff from him, like in whatever content, like FX, Amazon, wherever it goes. We are putting, I need to vocalize these things, because we are putting these out as podcasts as well. So Anton says, fun but inconsequential is the title of my sex tape. So that's going to be fun if I have to keep reciting these things. So
hi, Mom.
Yeah, just good news all around.
That's right.
We do have some quick things to go over too. I'm excited for, I didn't put this in the title or the notes because I know people are going to they're already clamoring for us to get this stuff, but we have quick news stories first. The name you may not recognize, and I didn't intellect him up, and Max might know him. I don't know if Eric will know him, but Marwan Kenzari. And
he's right. Fantastic in the Old Guard.
That's where I was
going.
Oh
yeah. He was also in Aladdin. He was Jafar.
And that's
which I didn't love him in Aladdin, but then in the Old Guard, I just thought his character was so much better written.
He stole every scene he was in. He was
literally
fantastic.
You guys are taking the points out of my mouth. Like, he didn't have a lot to do in it's no, by all means. That's why I was going to bring it up. But if you haven't looked it up, if you just look up Joe's monologue from the Old Guard, you'll see. That's the only scene you really need. It's the best scene in an action movie, and it's a very tender, amazing monologue about this man declaring his love for his partner. And
that's right. It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous. It's like, it's one of those scenes where you watch and you're kind of like, damn, like
that's love.
The whole thing, I brought him up because he's officially added to the cast of Black Adam. At some point this movie is going to come out. We don't know when. We don't know who else is going to be in it aside from him and The Rock. You say 2023?
That's my guess, yeah.
I mean, if they're still casting and they're especially trying to schedule out The Rock at this point, like, you're looking at however many years, however many projects he's doing, and he's going to be higher up on producing when that goes. And I don't necessarily agree with this, Nathan. I don't think the action was the worst part of the Old Guard, but the storytelling was really good. Like, I love the idea of the storytelling, and I think they're going to be doing more. I think they're going to be going, like, we'll get more of these films. I don't know how or when, but
it's Netflix. They make up money and rules.
Yes.
Any opportunity to let a Black female direct a comic book movie is okay in my book, and I thought she did a really nice job.
Agreed. No,
She did the best of. I mean, she was probably limited based on budget and whatever. I mean, that's why like a lot of the action sequences were in tight locations,
Right, and I
that's
think
probably
I
all
think
they
it
could
did
get.
well for Netflix, so she'll probably get more money. But the
Yeah.
character work was what excited me about it,
Mhm.
and I thought that was where it excelled.
Correct. And that was just most of the new I like this new thing where we don't have like negative things to talk about. I like that stuff is happening again that makes us really amused and like it's exciting to talk about. That was one of them.
Well, it's a new year, and we don't have to look into the void anymore and just cry.
We'll just keep going on and things are exciting. I want to say this specifically because I know Max, I think I had it in the show notes twice because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss it. But Paddington 3, Max, do you want to just say how excited you are for that?
Look, if you don't know me, Paddington is my boy. Legitimately, Paddington 2 is on my list of my top 10 favorite films of the decade. The first one is very good as well. The second, I think, is brilliant. I'm a little disappointed to hear Paul King won't be returning in the director's chair. However, he's staying on to produce it, and I hope they pick the right person to maintain the truly magical, whimsical tone. But what I'm most excited about is to see who they cast as the villain, because the villain casting in the first two was so on point with Nicole Kidman and then Hugh Grant in the second one. And there's so many possibilities of wonderful British thespians they could bring in to square off against that marmalade-loving bear.
Would you say that is the closest, those series of movies are the closest thing we get to like a Ted Lasso as far as tone and vibe, to where it's just like, it feels like someone's hugging your soul?
Yeah, it feels like a warm hug. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So I've seen the first one, but I haven't seen the second one yet. And you think the second one's superior?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay.
I do.
Eric, thoughts on Paddington? Go.
I agree with Max when they're just so whimsical and charming. It's you cannot hate Paddington. He is just so charming. You just want to. It's like he said, you want to hug them. It feels like a hug when you watch these movies, and I'm looking forward to see who the villain could be because they've knocked it out each time. And also, I enjoyed his little Twitter feud with Deadpool a couple of years back because, again, it just shows just how warm and caring he is. Even when Deadpool was ripping into him, he was just being so polite.
There you go. Enough said. Anton just says Paddington 2 is a masterpiece. So I need to get on it. More homework. So many things. There's only so much time in the day, you guys. I'm running around until...
Well, there's 24 hours.
Yeah, and that's only so much. I have to sleep for 14 of those hours. Like, you got to get your beauty rest because,
Oh, is that what I'm doing wrong?
I hibernate. I mean, it's
6
not for
hours
everyone.
max for this guy. That's why I look like a hobo.
So pivoting slightly, I didn't even know this was a thing. Did you guys know we're getting an animated Gremlins prequel?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I didn't know it was animated. I knew there was one coming out.
It is animated. It's going directly to HBO Max, and the people that they already have cast it's a crazy good cast, including Ming-Na Wen, B.D. Wong, James Hong, and Matthew Rice. Like, it's going to be 10 episodes, and it's set before the events of the first one. It looks like it says it's set in...
Takes place in the 1920s in Shanghai.
Ooh.
So this is like where Gremlins come from, which I think is like, I like when they take a project and they find a new angle to. I feel like this is a really good setup for this property. Because when you get to Gremlins as is, and when you got it in the 80s, it's like they've been around and there's been already so much lore behind it. So when you get to see where the lore comes from, I think that's a really interesting take. Nodding, Eric.
Oh yeah, I mean, granted, I'm a huge fan of Gremlins too. I thought it was far superior than the first one. Like Paddington, where the sequel is far superior than the first one. But I mean, I'm just excited to see where they go. They got a great cast so far, and with HBO Max, I mean, this is the kind of content I want from them.
Yeah, I mean, and especially like it's interesting to see because we've talked a lot about what's coming to HBO Max, and I like seeing them go. And as far as more family-friendly programming as well, because we all know how edgy the Snyder Cut's going to be rated R. But
we live in a society.
Soon we'll get to that too. Max, strong feelings on Gremlins or the Gremlins prequel or animated? Or are you just excited?
I only
Again,
actually saw Gremlins for the first time a couple months ago.
at the watch along.
At a watch along that we did on the Pajukin, and I really loved it. I have yet to watch a second, but I think there's a lot of ground they could cover. I mean, the Gremlins themselves are fascinating and fun characters, and sometimes when I hear we're going to do an origin story or a prequel to talk about where something came from, I'm sort of like, yeah, really? But the Gremlins are so weird and strange that I think animated is the absolute right medium for it.
Yes,
and that's probably what has me most excited about. And HBO Max is doing some really, really fun things in animation.
I think
because Cartoon Network is Warner Brothers, so they have some overlap there. They've taken over some of their shows and they're co-developing them. So
I think if you do this, you don't have you do one of two things. You have to stick with the old school puppets, or you go to animation. What's up, Mike?
Hey, Mike K.
It's one of those things where it's like, just for that medium, for that type of story, you need that kind of zaniness, that kind of bonkers. You need the flexibility, more or less, as opposed to just a hard and fast. Like, if this went CGI, I think there'd be no interest in it at all, and I think no one would be happy about it.
If they ever do make a third movie, which I know has been mentioned, I know Chris Columbus has expressed a lot of interest. They've got to use animatronics and puppetry. Not
well, I think
which
the
I feel
Mandalorian.
Like
I think the Mandalorian showed them. Yes, you can use animatronics and puppets to make this work.
Yes, 100% agreed with all that. More quickie news. So Wednesday Addams is getting her own standalone series at Netflix, and Tim Burton is coming to direct it. Is this a yay? Is this a nay? Is this a is it an LC? Where so right in the middle. Max, are you or are you?
I'm pretty in the middle too. What I will say is, it took me a few minutes to realize that Tim Burton had not yet done something with the Addams Family, because it feels like that's something he
right. That
done.
feels like a property that would be perfect for him.
What I will say is I've seen some comments that they should cast a Latinx actress to play Wednesday, which I agree with.
I definitely agree
Gomez Addams has been Latino for years. I mean, Raul Julia was brilliant in the films in the 90s. White people have played the role. Nathan Lane played Gomez on Broadway, so it's not a hard and fast rule, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for fun casting. I would maybe even suggest Krista Rodriguez, who played Wednesday Addams in the Broadway musical, was also on that Netflix vampire show, I can't remember, and Smash. So she has a TV experience. I think she's the right age.
Sure.
She has the look. That could be fun, but I don't know. I mean, the idea that Tim is doing TV is fascinating, but I found in the second half of his career, his better work is stuff that's not tied to IP.
Fair. No, I definitely can understand that, and I respect
Except
that.
I did like Dumbo. That's like the one outlier for me that I thought, oh, this is pretty good.
And Eric, as you saw Dumbo last year, 2 years ago, so given all that and given the information you're now processing, where do you land with? I know you said but like elaborate on that a little.
I mean, just because I have a weird theory with Tim Burton. I have a weird relationship with him where, like, I respect him, but like I feel like when he goes
to you going out to dinner one time,
like,
he just left you with the bill.
Yeah.
Like, we've got a weird relationship. I'm like, what the fuck was up with that, Tim?
Right, like he ordered 2 lobsters when he only needed 1. But when it comes to, because my other thing is, like, you give Tim Burton's reins, give him some creativity, but you need to be able to reel him in sometimes.
Sure.
And I'm worried Netflix is just going to give him, the old blank check, do whatever you want. And like what Maxwell said, when you give him, an existing IP, you get mixed results. You're looking at mixed results. I mean, with Dumbo, as you remember our review, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed him doing more of a story about how Michael Keaton is Walt Disney and that weird bee story more than the actual story about Dumbo. So that's why I'm like, okay, so give him the Addams Family. That's right up his wheelhouse. See what he does with it. I'm glad, like, they already aren't saying like Christina Ricci's coming back. It's something like that. So
yeah,
but I'm willing to see what it's happening. But it's going to be a process. Before I let them back into my heart,
for sure. I like where they're going so far as like hearing it. I love the idea of casting a Latinx actress. I think that's the perfect idea. I'm a little confused. I think we got cheated. You remember when they announced like the animated one, and then they're like, "Oh, you're gonna get Eva Green and you're gonna get Oscar Isaac," and I'm like, "Yes, give me all that." And then it's like, "Oh, it's animated." And I'm like, "Damn it, why?" Because it would have been so good as live action. And my only apprehension is like I'm all for it, but once you get to the plot details where it's like it's her years at the Nevermore Academy and her attempts to master her emerging psychic ability, and I'm like, I liked it so much more when she was just a little weirdo. Like, I feel like you don't need another layer of like we're already hooked. You're already hooked at the Addams Family. You're already hooked at this IP. Like you don't need these other, and like her sleuthing by all means, that's cool. But it's like I feel like they were just like chaotic neutral, and that's what I loved so much about the Addams Family. It's like just a whole bunch of crazy shit happening, like, and it's kind of macabre and like dark. So
right, and you don't need to give them supernatural powers. You just let them be weird.
Yeah,
and then have MC Hammer drop some beats.
Total beats with a Z. So I mean, that's my apprehension. I'm with you at least similarly on Tim Burton, where it's like I'll wait and see. And like Max pointed out, I think it's interesting that he hasn't had anything to do with this property yet. I can't talk today, but you feel like you did. That's just one of those things that feels like it. Where am I in show notes? Let's look. Covered
Only
a lot of these
the
things.
Most professional on the projection.
Totes. We're the most professionals. I did want to laugh about one thing where there was an article that I didn't even necessarily read, but apparently somebody was annoyed that we don't know who the big bad is on WandaVision, and I thought that was funny.
I didn't want to click on it because to me that's a clickbait title, and I don't want to give them the pleasure of that click. But I've heard
it's a website I go to all the time, also. So it was someone who I had a modicum of respect for who wrote it.
Before we get too far away, Mike, I definitely agree with you. 20 years ago, Burton would have been perfect to direct Addams Family, but now I'm lukewarm on the idea, and also really like the most recent animated film. That's a great way to sum all that up. Also, Nathan, you are right. Can't spell Dan without da professional.
Is that
I agree with
the
that.
sequel to Leon, the Professional?
Yes, you just throw
the German remake, Das Professional.
Das Professional. I can't wait to see what the stone is going to be like for that movie. So bringing it back. But yeah, it was just, I thought that was so weird where it's like you did a whole article. I don't even know who wrote it, so I can't call anyone out, nor would I want to, but it's just like, is the whole article about you being impatient?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm genuinely curious because it's just like, I love the pacing. I love everything we've gotten so far. So it's like, but I also think we're very much I want it now. We're very much of a Rook assault culture.
First of all, without diving too much into WandaVision theories, it's entirely possible there is no big bad beyond what we've already seen. We don't know. It's just a theory. But I legitimately think this is a case, and I would expect someone who's been writing professionally about television for as long as he has to not have succumbed to this, that the Netflix and binge model that they popularized starting with House of Cards has untaught consumers how to watch television. For almost the entire run of television, you watched an episode a week. Sometimes there'd be a hiatus of a couple weeks in between because of sports or holidays. And the episode would finish, and then you would be like, all right, same time, same channel. Next week, I'll watch the next episode. And I made a tweet that was like, so Lost, that first season was 25 episodes. We didn't find out what was in the hatch until the first episode of season 2.
Well, and you can go back.
One of the big questions in Battlestar was, who are the other Cylons? We didn't find that out to the end of season 3, which was almost 50 episodes into the show. We've had 6 episodes of WandaVision that are half an hour each. 6 episodes. 6. It's like,
it's a mystery. This isn't an R.L. Stein Goosebumps where you get the big twist in the middle. Like,
it would be like watching the first season of Veronica Mars and on the 6th episode being like, they need to tell us who murdered Lily Kane immediately.
Well, and it was,
that's a season-long arc.
It's before all of our times, but what was it? I think it was Dallas. Was that the show that got so famous where people were literally breaking into offices because they wanted to find out who shot JR? And it's like, that kind of fervor, I feel like is a good thing. And I don't remember whether we had this conversation on air. This is a conversation I was going to bring up at another time, but fuck it, we're talking about it, so let's bring it up now.
We're doing it live.
We're doing it live. This is the show. It's one of those things, and it was. Hold on, I have to find my train of thought again because I realized that this was a conversation. So that this is something that we were talking about, and like we've brought up previously on the show, and that's what it was. We previously on the other iteration of the show, we were saying what's going to have the biggest cultural impact, and this was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? The end of Game of Thrones, 2 years ago, right, Eric?
3 now, technically.
Was it 3? Okay. So when that ended, that was around the time Infinity War came out, and there was another big film we had this conversation where like, what is going to have the most cultural impact? And we went back and forth, and we were like, even though Infinity War is probably going to be bigger culturally, the end of Game of Thrones, because it's released episodically, is going to have a more lasting effect because that discourse isn't going to die down. And I think especially you have to tie this into where we are right now as a society with the pandemic, because you've gotten used to a lot of people just consuming and consuming and consuming, and they're not understanding that like inherent patience that you needed. Like the fact that Max brought up the first season of Lost was 25 episodes. Can you really imagine a show that's going that like your normal sitcom or your normal hour-long, unless it's an hour-long procedural like Law and Order or CSI that they're following, or Criminal Minds, that's for you, Max, that they're following a very specific path every week, like ones that are fabricating new storylines every episode. Like that sounds exhausting at this point in time. And so when you're getting into demanding knowing who the big bad is before, like you can't wait 3 more weeks.
Right. It's only 3 more weeks. Well, also I get it, because like where we are right now, like if this was like, let's say Game of Thrones was being released right now during the pandemic, how much we would probably be still doing the same stuff, complaining about certain stuff, because one of the things we're missing right now is human interaction. Like if we were still back to normal, whatever that used to be, like if I was in my office, I could like talk to my friends at work every day, be like, so what did you think of WandaVision? What's your theory on this? That would be every day. Now I'll be lucky if I'm able to have these conversations. So now it's these people who just want it now because they don't have a place to, put out their thoughts out, have that immediate interaction with somebody. That's why they want that immediate, I need to know this now.
Well, I think some people also forget that network TV is still a thing that exists and makes a lot of shows. Sure, the ratings are not what they once were, but that's also not factoring in people who watch it on Hulu or Peacock or whatever streaming service, or who download it on iTunes or Amazon. And those shows are putting out weekly episodes that people are enjoying. That's how TV always was. And I think for a show like WandaVision, especially, the week by week is the ideal way to do it, because the mystery elements of it has been half of the fun of watching the show. And, in terms of sustaining buzz, it's the best way to do it. I've said this before, even the most popular Netflix shows like Stranger Things, which I love, when that season comes, you watch it all in a day or two. People are talking about it for a week, and then it leaves the zeitgeist as fast as it entered, and they're on to the next big Netflix show. Which is not a way to, I think Stranger Things is maybe one of the few things that has skirted that, because the fan base is so passionate that there's merch and stuff. But in terms of like the general public zeitgeist, the Netflix shows just disappear. Whereas WandaVision has sustained now for 6 weeks and is going to keep until the finale, as we saw with Mandalorian, as we saw with season 2 of The Boys.
So personally, and I want to pose this question to you guys as well, do you think Netflix would benefit from doing an episodic release?
Yes. Not for every show.
Things like
Stranger Things. Yeah, I think for their buzziest shows that have mystery or thriller elements, they absolutely would.
Yep.
Something like Bridgerton or
Cobra Kai.
Virgin River. No. Cobra Kai, yes, absolutely it would. Because every episode of that show has a cliffhanger.
And it's interesting to see which episode, because like some of them, like, and I feel like I'll throw this into the conversation. Great British Bake Off, when they're getting new episodes, they're now going day after to Netflix, so they're not having a choice. They're releasing them episodically, but that's because they don't have everything released yet as this, like the airing schedule in the BBC. So I 100% agree. Even though you could backtrack that, and I feel like you could dump, because everyone's going to keep watching Great British Bake Off forever. and you could, but like you're right, the story ones, the ones that have those plot lines, I really think they would benefit from the week by week to keep the conversation going. So
yeah,
I mean, that's where we started with WandaVision.
Remember how big Orange is the New Black was when it was at its height?
Oh yeah, it was huge.
When's the last time anyone talked about that show?
Probably whenever Genji Cohen is making something new.
Right. You know, people would talk about it for a week and then they would move on. You know, I don't pretend to know or tell Netflix how to better run their business, although they operate a, you know, massive amount of debts, which I'm sure is for tax purposes. But I think for certain of their elite shows, Ozark would be great week by week.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one of those things that like I hope we go back to that, and especially it may change depending on how you get out of the pandemic and depending on what the numbers look like, because there's no way they're not noticing the impact that Disney Plus has had with Mandalorian and with WandaVision.
I was talking with William Bibiani a couple weeks ago about this. If you listeners don't know him, he's a pretty accomplished.
I'm with you, Nate. Bring back Glow.
Yeah, I want that final season, or at least let him wrap it up with the movie. Pretty accomplished film critic, and he said something that I thought resonated. That for a while, network television took lessons from streaming, right? So, barring a few exceptions, even most network shows now do shorter seasons. They've honed in on the 13, 16, 18 episode as opposed to having to put out 24 or 26 a season. But now, streaming is learning things from network as to how to sustain buzz. And I think if anyone can reteach some of the other streamers, it's Disney. Because The Mandalorian was the first ever season 2 of The Mandalorian was the first ever streaming show to have been clocked to have been watched more than any Netflix show on streaming last year.
Well, in thinking about all that, and let's just put our heads together real briefly. Don't think about too much of this, but how many networks, streaming or regular, are under that Disney umbrella right now? I can think of 4 off the top of my head, because you got Hulu, you got ABC, you've got Disney Plus, and you have technically Fox. So
and ESPN.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking more for like creative new content, but yes, ESPN as well.
Well, and FX.
FX as well. Yeah. Well, are they owned by that, or are they separate?
Yes.
Disney now owns FX.
There you go. And that'll be, we'll table, I'm going to put a pin right in this conversation here, because Eric and I have also discussed way back when about the Fox Disney merger, and we can get into that and acquisitions about like how that impacts creativity, but that will lead into a story we're talking about later. But I heard a lot of buzz, and
just one really quick.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying the reason WandaVision, Mandalorian, they works because they are what we used to call the water cooler show, where you could sit around the water cooler and talk about it. Like, I don't know, let's say Saturdays at 3:00 on the Bajunkin, you can sit around.
Oh, you mean like this?
Like this.
There is a reason why I decided to call the show the PJCN Water Cooler Chat.
So we're going to do plugs right in the middle. This is something we've been kicking around the show. Maybe at one point we'll do commercials, but right now we're just going to plug our own damn channel. So be here. I think 2 of us at least. We have to see whether or not Eric is going to join us again this week. But I'm going to be on with Maxwell again. I was going to say Maxwell's going to be PJ. I'm going to be Max. Yep. And then Eric maybe there's me. So I don't know what's going to happen. Yes, sure. And then the cardboard cutout of you is going to be you. So
yeah, step your game up.
I don't think so. I don't think that cardboard cutout needs to do a goddamn thing else. I think it's pitch perfect as it could be. All right. So I know we were getting a whole lot of comments in the beginning that people wanted us to talk about. And we're going to go first to Eric. Eric has a theme name. Eric, what's your theme name about?
Disney decided just to drop a little trailer for a little movie that comes out this week. That comes out in May, 2021, and it's another one of their let's get the villain backstory going, and that is Cruella, starring Emma Stone, who rocks the look.
Yes, I mean it's one of those things where it's like I don't think anything in this trailer surprised me, but that being said, it looks really good for what it is. I know Max, you were really excited to see it. The trailer. Yeah,
I love the trailer. First of all, Emma Stone's one of my favorite actresses. I think she's incredible, and I think she's perfect casting for this. I also love that Glenn Close is on as a producer of this, which just makes me happy.
I did not know.
But the fact that the script was written by the gent who wrote The Favorite, which is so catty and witty and sharp. The fact that Craig Gillespie, I may have pronounced it wrong, is directing this, who directed I, Tonya. I just think everything is sort of on target for it to be one of the stronger one of these Disney movies. And the trailer, like for me, it was all about the aesthetic, and it has such strong punk rock vibes. Like if you had told me this was a Paramore music video, I would have believed you, with, you know, slightly higher production values than Paramore probably would have had back when they were doing pop punk in 2008 with the Riot album. I just loved it. It like spoke to me. Like people thought I was making a joke, but I was dead serious when I tweeted, I cannot wait for the entire Hot Topic line of Cruella merch. I'm gonna buy it all. If there are Vans with Cruella's face on it, they're mine. If there's like a leather jacket with Emma Stone winking on the back, or like a wallet with a chain that's Cruella themed, it's gonna be mine.
That's one of the things that's really hard to do in our days of social media, is really like Twitter nuance, or like just online nuance, because it's like,
I mean, it's a funny statement, but I was also pretty serious about it.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing your entire background change to everything.
Nate, that's actually what I was thinking too. I didn't know the creative team behind it as well. Like the favorite writer is really good. The director,
right? So Tony McNamara, who wrote the screenplay for the Favorite, and also the creator of the Hulu show The Great.
Oh, okay. I watched all of that, and that was really good.
Yeah, he co-wrote the screenplay for Cruella with Dana Fox. So I am glad that there's a woman on the writing team, and she's worked more in the comedy world. She did The Wedding Date and Couples Retreat. So I think the two of them together will make a good team. And I don't know. I was excited by it. Like, I'm pretty 50-50 on the Disney reimaginings. I think the ones that are not direct remakes are the most exciting ones. I like Cinderella, but like Pete's Dragon, I thought was so strong because it doesn't feel like a direct remake.
That's my favorite one of all the Disney remakes.
Maleficent is a lot of fun because it's sort of like subverting what you think you know. And I think Cruella is going to do that and be really fun. Yeah, a little of both. And also it has some serious Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey energy. I kept seeing people make Joker comparisons, but to me it's far more Harley Quinn.
I hope. I haven't seen Harley Quinn, which is why I got the Joker comparisons as far as me go. But Eric, what are you thinking?
Oh, well, I was feeling okay, but once you mentioned the director of I, Tonya was directing it, and I loved I, Tonya. So that's gotten me more excited. I don't think I'm going to go to Hot Topic. I'm not in that range yet, but I think this is going to be a very enjoyable movie. I think Emma Stone's going to knock it out of the park, and I'm just looking forward to see what they're doing. I just hope they don't do the thing where it's just like, you see, she's not really a bad person. It's just that she got turned into one. It's like, no, she wants to kill dogs.
Yeah, that's going to be.
Let's not forget the fact there.
I was going to say Nate did bring that up, and it's like, we do need to have Nate says voiceover. Ever since I was little, I always knew I wanted to wear the fur of dogs. So
it'll be interesting to see how they navigate that. The other fun thing is, we said it's the director of I, Tonya. He's reuniting with one of his stars of that. Paul Walter Hauser has a big role in it.
Oh, good. Good for that guy.
And he's barely in the trailer. This is more of a teaser
you
than
only
anything.
See him driving the car. That's the only thing.
But he's like third or fourth listed in the cast list because he also got Emma Thompson and Mark Strong. So it's a stacked cast.
Yeah, I think I did see Mark Strong in that trailer, and I was like, I love me some Mark Strong. But I'm with you, Eric, where it was. I feel like had I seen Birds of Prey before this, I might be getting those same vibes. But I was really not excited about Joker. So if we get another trailer that shows a little bit, because this was a very broad trailer to where it's like, here's the world, here's the character. If we go into another trailer where they're like, no, this is a little bit more of plot, and you give me a little bit more plot, and I'm not seeing those direct comparisons, like you didn't see it?
I didn't see it at all. I mean, just based on like the colors and the energy, it like nothing, not even close to that movie. That movie is so dour.
The aesthetic,
it's such a ripoff of like 70s Scorsese cinema. It felt so self-serious even in the trailers. And this is far more candy colored, far more, like I said, that punk rock, like Joan Jett aesthetic to it. I don't get Joker at all. I really didn't. And I was surprised to see so many people latching onto that, even forgetting, it's more akin to Harley Quinn. If anything, I was like, no, this is Maleficent. Disney did Maleficent before Joker came out. So it's not the first time they've taken one of the villains from their animated films and given them their own live action movie.
See, I went with the Joker not because of like the style of the trailer, but because of the plot beats you get from the trailer, where you get someone who wants to be, because clearly they're trying to pin it up like she wants to be Emma Thompson, which I mean, who doesn't? She wants to be into that world, and she then goes through the dramatic change, changes the hair color, and then becomes like the symbol of something. I mean, that's what I was getting with the Joker comparison. Aesthetically, you're right; it does look more like Birds of Prey. I get that comparison. So it's literally both.
Yeah, I agree as well. So, all right. So the
question is it Disney Plus only, or are they going to do a date release? They haven't really clarified. It's coming out in May. I think if anything, it might be like they're doing with Raya, where it's Disney Plus and theaters. I don't know. We'll have to see.
It is May 28th. I'm actually glad you mentioned that because I wanted to make a note that I found that interesting that there's a date. Like, this is coming out. We don't know if we're going to do a Mulan where you're going like paying an extra service on top for Disney Plus. We don't know if you're going to get an HBO Max where you're getting day and date.
I think that they're going to be paying very close attention to how Raya and the Last Dragon does. And then maybe they'll decide thereafter.
And what day is Raya? That's coming out in March, correct?
March 5th.
Okay. The only reason I think, yes, they are going to be paying attention to that. However, I think it's going to be a little weird because that's a completely new IP, correct?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not based on anything else. So when you're looking at Cruella, this should have a bigger marquee, and you're literally putting it at the end of May. So you're looking at a quote unquote summer release in any other.
Although for what it's worth, like if you look at box office receipts, like any new Walt Disney Animation Studios film is an IP in and of itself. There's a built-in big box office. Like not a single one of them has flopped over the last decade.
I'm not necessarily saying it'll flop. I'm saying it's a harder comparison because
it's the only evidence Disney's going to have to see, because when Mulan did it, theaters were not open anywhere.
Gotcha.
Right. So if you wanted to watch Mulan, you paid the $30 on Disney Plus, or you waited 3 months till it became included with the service. Soul, they just decided to give to everyone as a Christmas gift.
Yes.
Raya, they've decided to do it. It'll be both in theaters where theaters are open, and then $30 on Disney Plus. And I'm sure there's budgeting reasons behind this and all this other stuff. Yeah. So this is the first time Disney's going to have empirical evidence on who chooses to pay the $30 on Disney Plus. How well does it do in theaters? Who might be waiting? That sort of thing. So.
I know, like, there's going to be the Tom Hanks Pinocchio movie. They already said that's coming out on Disney Plus. So that's why I'm not sure about Cruella, what they're going to do with it. I think we'll know more probably like a month, like in April. They'll probably say something.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. So speaking of day and date and new releases, who got really bloody earlier today watching the Mortal Kombat trailer? I actually watched it twice in a row. It made me really happy. That's my short take. Eric, what's the long take?
Get over here and let's talk about this. I didn't know I needed a new Mortal Kombat movie because I was completely satisfied with the one that was released on YouTube, that 30-minute series.
Yeah,
Legacy. I was totally satisfied with that. But this trailer, come on. If you don't get pumped and if you don't want to bust out your old Mortal Kombat 3 simulator and drink some Mountain Dew and eat some pizza like you used to back in the day with your controller, because that extra grease helps move the joystick around.
Yes, they do. And also Brandy. Great to see
Brandy.
you. Thanks for coming by.
But they took it this seriously, which I appreciate. Like, they could have they didn't do it cheesy. They're like, no, we're going to tell a real story. This is with people fighting to the death.
Yep.
And yes, there is a blood dagger.
Like, it's one of those things.
I can watch it on the bigger TV because I initially saw it on my cell phone. I was like, so I had to wait to watch it on the TV, and it was worth the wait.
Oh, for sure. It's one of those things where it was like, I don't want to say it's not cheesy because I feel like the property in and of itself,
Right, the property is cheesy, but
inherently cheesy.
there's a way to do it where you're still doing it with a sense of love, where
Yes.
you want to take it seriously, but at the same time, you have people ripping hearts out and not, decapitating people just for the fun of it.
And that's the thing is like the blood dagger is amazing, but the trailer starts with Jax's arms being ripped off, like they're frozen, and then he's like, that's a great little like the fact that they threw in so much lore in a 2-minute trailer for anyone who's been a fan of the series or like even a fan of the first movie, like you're still getting characters, you're getting a little bit more of a taste of the world. I like how they're keeping it kind of simple. It doesn't have to get too convoluted or complicated. Max, how excited were you to see this?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. A couple weeks ago, I decided to do for just my own personal edification, like an overview of all the video game movies we've gotten. And by that, I mean movies specifically adapted from video games, not movies like Wreck-It Ralph or Scott Pilgrim that some people would call a video game movie. And for what it's worth, I still think the original Mortal Kombat from 95 is still one of the better ones.
Yes.
It knew what it was fun, but you don't realize how much you want to see the fucking gore in Mortal Kombat until you see the fucking gore. And I'm not usually one of those people who's like, no, this has to be R-rated, but the fact that this is not only going to be R-rated, but looks like a hard R
Red Band trailer
is exciling.
First thing you dropped, Red Band trailer.
Yeah. I think the casting is good. I mean, Joe Taslim is awesome. I like Makad Brooks a lot. He's playing Jackson. He was on Supergirl for a long time. But you really had me at Hiroyuki Sanada, who I think is one of our great actors. And to see him in this playing Scorpion is awesome. I have some questions about the director because he's directed nothing else ever.
Oh, I'm looking it up right now. Let's see what he's got.
But
a video short.
This is a trailer that really just made me go, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And as Mike K said, like one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time is
The blood
stabbing
dagger.
someone, their blood squirts out, you have freezing powers, you freeze their blood, and then you stab them again with the blood dagger. Like, holy shit. And if that's what they're putting in the trailer, like my mind boggles at what other cool stuff is going to be in this movie.
Well, and they tease so many of the fatalities that you remember when you were a
there's
kid.
the guy in the movie goes in the trailer goes, fatality.
Or finish them.
Yeah, finish
Oh, is
it.
it who says finish him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you see Jax getting ready to do the head smash, and then you see Kano with the heart going, yeah, Kano wins.
The other interesting thing I'd like to note is the producer of the movie is pretty active on Twitter today. And someone tweeted at him and was like, looks great. I'm just disappointed Johnny Cage isn't in it. And he responded, Johnny Cage is not in it. So I love Johnny Cage. He's one of my favorite Mortal Kombat characters. So I'm really curious what surprises they may have in store for that character. Maybe they got a big name in like a cameo part setting up a sequel. I don't know.
Ooh, that would be who would you? And I got to think, who would we want as Johnny Cage? Like the super, but you got to go like some sort of movie star, but someone who's like aware, and you couldn't have someone who's already in like a big IP or already has their own franchise.
Okay, stay with me here for a second, but Zac Efron.
No, love it. Love everything about it.
I think that would be such smart casting. Because I was saying I did a watch along of High School Musical on our friend Abby Frill's channel, and I went on and on about how I think him doing an action movie would be perfect. So imagine Zac Efron's Johnny Cage.
No, I love everything about that.
This is fun.
Great.
Nicolas Cage is a middle-aged Johnny Cage. That could be really cool too, actually.
I was going to Stephen Amell.
Okay.
Arrow fame.
Yeah,
I could do that.
that could be cool. Although he has
Go ahead.
I would say he did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles too.
That wasn't his fault.
Channing Tatum, that could work.
Yeah.
Channing Tatum.
That could
or
definitely work.
I was going to say you have Stephen Amell or his brother, who was in the main character in Upload, Robbie Amell.
Robbie Amell, yeah.
Yep.
Was cousin.
both-
They're cousins.
They're cousins. Okay, thank you.
They look quite a bit alike for cousins, but they
Yeah,
are cousins.
it's creepy that they're cousins, but they look more like brothers.
I think I would probably, out of all of those, I think I may go Channing Tatum, because that's such a great cast. You know, he'll never be Gambit, so you could give him this, and he could have a lot of fun.
Oh, and also he
Talking
could
about
ham it up if needed.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh, he would knock it out of the park. I have no doubt.
Mhm.
That's exciting because the other thing you mentioned that, and I'm glad you said that's what the producer said, because the tweets that I saw that were coming in was like somebody said I could already see the hashtag coming called release the Johnny Cage cut. So I'm happy that they're going to do something with his character, and I really, really, really hope you're right. And now I'm closing IMDb because I don't want to accidentally.
You don't want to accidentally spoil yourself.
If someone is there, I don't want to see that. But yeah, the amount of hype that's going to happen in the next 2 months. I hope we don't. This is another thing we've talked about before on Ramble On. I don't want to see anything else. I'm sold hard on that first trailer.
I sort of feel like with this year with these like day and date HBO Max movies, when they're waiting 2 months only to release the trailer,
Yeah,
there's not going to be additional trailers. This is all they need. And people are like, well, what about a Green Band? No, you don't need a Green Band trailer for this movie. No kids should be watching this movie.
Right.
No. I mean, the kids will watch this movie because, as we all know, violence is much less.
No, he does not need to be Caucasian.
No, that's
not
a good
at
point.
all.
We could throw in another really fun name because I would take Raul Coley because he's my favorite. I'm going to put him in everything now. I mean,
he's way too famous now, but Michael B. Jordan would be dope.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You just thought about the Alexa ad, didn't you? I saw Eric's face. Anyway.
The Michael Jordan of Alexa Super Bowl commercials. But no, just like I said when in our chat, I was just like, I love because Halloween 95, 96, I dressed up as Kano for Halloween. Of course, since I'm the youngest child, there are no pictures of it, but he was always my favorite. So I appreciate they have a proper bastard. Like you can tell he's just going to be a proper bastard in this, and I love it.
I said he's too famous and he'd never do it. We're just throwing out ideas, Anton.
He's going to do it, Anton. You're going to be wrong.
Just watch. You're going to be eating your words.
You eat those words.
Right. There's going to be a post-credit scene, and Michael B. Jordan shows up shirtless, and we're all like, "Oh."
Yes, that's all it's going to be. It's literally just going to be like, and here's Johnny.
Him shirtless, wearing sunglasses, and the audience is like, "Oh, we know."
Yeah, we know.
That's cut to credits.
Signing a picture.
That's how the movie ends.
Tosses it to the camera.
Love it. And it's just like your number one fan. It's an homage to the first one where Scorpion has the photo. Boom.
Yep.
Count it.
HBO
all right, now,
will take our money now.
Yes, money, please. So I'm going to go. We're going to do one more thing of casting news and then get into a really big, long topic. And probably that's going to finish us out here. But that's going to be a long conversation. So because this goes right into it, apparently Jesse Plemons had his pick of what movie he wanted to do. He could either do Killers of the Flower Moon, being directed by Scorsese and also starring Leonardo DiCaprio or Robert De Niro, or the other one he had was Jordan Peele's new movie, which apparently Daniel Kaluuya is coming back for, and the schedules didn't match up. So Jesse Plemons is officially going to be the lead in the next Scorsese movie, and good for him. Like, this guy is a huge talent. And I'm really glad we've gotten to see, like, if you haven't seen Game Night, he's worth watching. Game Night is hysterical by itself. He's so good.
I retweeted something, I don't know if it was earlier today or last night, that made it all click for me why I love Jesse Plemons so much. And it's that he is the heir apparent to Philip Seymour Hoffman, which Paul Thomas Anderson knew because he cast him as his son in The Master.
Oh, wow. There you go.
You know, the type of intensity he can bring to a part, the versatility. I mean, if you watch him in Game Night and then you watch him in say Judas and the Black Messiah, you know, he has such range.
Just watch his episode of Black Mirror. Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was incredible on season 2 of Fargo. And I've been a fan of his because I devoured and loved every episode of Friday Night Lights. And even though I think the biggest mistake the show made was what they did with his character in season 2, they did recover his character. And he was one of the few actors other than the adults who were in every episode and stayed through the whole time. He was great on that show.
And that's probably one of the reasons why he has such a strong body of work now, is because people can go back and be like, look at how good, look at how consistent, look at where he came from. And you can be like, yes.
Yep, exactly. Reef says, Landry has grown up right before our eyes.
Nice.
And Mike K says, damn, and now I'm just imagining a younger Philip Seymour Hoffman and I'm thinking of ending things and it all makes sense. Yeah, when I heard that, I was just like, yeah, and that's why I think Jesse is becoming one of my favorite actors. Like, he's the type of actor who now where if he shows up in a project, I like smile. I'm like, that's my
Immediately
guy.
interested. Yep.
Immediately happier that he's in it at that point.
So the apparently was it Killers of the Flower Moon? This was based on a book, and the more or less the log line is Plemons is going to play a guy named Tom White, who is the lead FBI agent investigating murders.
Yeah.
You mean this book?
That book, the one Max is holding up, but it says Killers of the Flower Moon, and so essentially it's going to be it says serial murders of members of the oil wealthy Osage Nation, a string of brutal crimes, and it's about killing of Native Americans. And apparently there's going to be a family that married into it, and Robert De Niro is going to be the uncle of Leonardo DiCaprio who marries into it. So they're more or less going to be teed up to be the villains. So that's going to lead to some really just I can feel the tension in that already.
Dan and I had a Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and Leo was originally supposed to be the lead in this.
Correct.
Right.
And then I'm not sure if he agreed to step down.
I think he decided. My assumption is Leo goes, I already won an Oscar for Best Actor. Playing the villain is more fun. Let me play the villain.
Yes.
And from what I heard, his villain character has a slightly juicier part in the script than he does in the book.
The article that I found on To Her, as Joestar says, is the role was originally supposed to be played by DiCaprio before DiCaprio segued to the second lead. So he stepped down to it.
Right. Dan and I had a conversation last night, and we had a mild disagreement, which is interesting, where if we were faced with the same choice as Jesse Plemons, Dan would have gone with the Jordan Peele project, and I would have taken the lead in the Scorsese movie any day.
Yeah, Eric.
How do you feel, Eric? If you were given that choice, which way are you going?
Well, let me ask you this: do we know what the Jordan Peele project is? Or
no, we just know it's on IMDb. It says Untitled Jordan Peele Horror Event.
It's an event. So it's one of those things where it was like we're assuming that we're making the decision off of the information that we know. Like you have to assume that Jesse Plemons knows much more than we do,
right? Because Jordan Peele had
scripts.
to pitch the film to him, right?
Right.
So where do you go? Where's your head at? Knowing what we know, not Jesse Plemons. Eric, let Eric say what he's thinking about this. Talk it out, because we literally talked about this for about 20 minutes last night.
We did.
And that was the end.
And it was a healthy disagreement. We weren't fighting or anything.
And that's the thing.
Well, my immediate reaction is to go with Jordan Peele, only because I love his last two films. But if you take a step back and think about it, it's like you get a chance to be a lead in the Scorsese film. And you get to work with Leo and Robert De Niro.
That was Max's.
I mean,
and this was my other argument too, is that how much does Scorsese have left in him? And yeah, Jesse Plemons is in The Irishman, but it's a small part. Here you're getting a lead, and we have to assume he's read the script. He may see Oscars in sight for this role, and I think Plemons is on that track. So I don't know.
Like I see the appeal in both projects.
Sure, it's a tough choice to have. I feel real bad for him.
Boo-hoo. Right, this is the real Sophie's choice. Let me tell you. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'd probably go to the Scorsese because again, do we know how old he is off the top of my head?
Scorsese, we looked up.
No, I just see.
Oh, Plemons?
I want to say he's about
32.
I would say about our age.
So he's still young in the game, if you look at it. So get that chance to work with the living legend, get that experience, put it on your resume, and then next time you do the Jordan Peele.
To me, taking the lead in the Scorsese also feels like your career is going from here to here. Right, like he would have another chance to work with Jordan Peele, most likely.
But you may not get a second chance to work.
You may not get this chance again. And who knows what possibilities this may open up to him. I really think he's going to be regarded as one of the greats in 10, 20 years.
I really think either way, though, because if you look at the people who were starring in early Jordan Peele movies too, between Get Out and Us, there's no shortage of talent there.
Incredible talent. I mean, Kaluuya was Oscar nominated for Get Out. I think he's about to get another one and hopefully win, because his performance in Judas and the Black Messiah is utterly masterful.
This year's going to be tough for Best Actor.
Like I said, Jesse Plemons is in Judas and the Black Messiah also. So
And then
And Kaluuya is in the new Peel. They're reuniting.
Yeah, and I was going to say Lakeith Stanfield, also a huge standout in Get Out, even though he's only in the movie for like 10 minutes.
Yep.
So there's positives to both. But then, so the very last thing I really want to deep dive into, I read this there was a huge discourse that came up a few days ago on Twitter, and it was a lot I didn't know what it came from. I just knew a lot of people were yelling about Scorsese and a lot of people were yelling about classic cinema, and that's really all I saw. And I saw a lot of people taking two sides, but clearly nothing anywhere, especially on the internet's always black and white, but nothing anywhere is going to be that cut. I know, right? So initially I found an IndieWire article where it's breaking down an essay that Scorsese wrote, and then I read both. I read that and then I read the essay, and it's a much more personal recounting, and it's a much more personal story than what it got clickbaited to. So you guys both got the chance to read this, and as far as seeing that discourse where it's like you either like classic movies or you don't, and how did you let's start at the beginning before we even get into the article or where Scorsese was coming from. What did you see about what people were talking about a few days ago? Let's say Eric.
Well, initially what I saw was, just people reacting to the clickbait title of Scorsese doesn't like movies being called content. Then you see people like, oh, old man yells at cloud, doesn't like the new changes.
Okay. I'll give you the direct quote. This is IndieWire's title and subtitle. It says, Scorsese takes aim at streaming's lack of curation and more. Cinema is being devalued by content. And the subtitle says, we can't depend on the movie business such as it is to take care of cinema, Scorsese writes in a new essay on Federico Fellini. So yeah, that's just the title as is.
Right, but what you were getting online is even less than that.
Oh, sure.
I forget the name of the YouTuber. I apologize. He's one of my favorites, but he has a great skit where he's just like, clickbait titles are literally just going to eventually just become, you won't believe. And people are going to lose their damn mind over it.
It's one of those.
That's what this was. People were just like, because people are still angry about his comments about Marvel from a year ago, about how it's not cinema, but it's just people just want to be angry at Scorsese, and I don't agree with being angry at Scorsese. And if you're going based on the title of those clickbaity articles, there's no reason to be mad at him.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I would say if anyone here who doesn't follow it, definitely follow Film Clickbait on Twitter, because they save you a lot of clicks, because they'll just retweet dumb articles where people are literally just fishing for clicks. I don't necessarily think that's what this is, but I think the message of what Scorsese was trying to say got very convoluted. Max, I know you had strong opinions when you first heard about what was going on. Did you read everything then, or did you wait until like a couple of days later? And
as soon as I saw it, I clicked through and read the essay. I have a lot of thoughts on this. The first is that on its face, it's hilarious to me that Scorsese has become the face of where fanboys place their ire for hating like elite cinema, because Scorsese is a populist. His cinema is mostly populist cinema. He has championed horror films and genre films and all that sort of stuff for decades. He has championed like strange Korean cinema that's incredibly violent. Although his films are hugely well respected, and I think he is without question one of the finest filmmakers that has ever lived, he's not Terrence Malick, right? He's not some uber, and I like Terrence Malick a lot, don't get me wrong. But if you actually, and this is just another case, if you actually take the time to read what he wrote, it is not at all in my opinion, what the discourse has evolved to. That being said, even on its face, if someone said to me, Scorsese said he doesn't like it when movies are referred to as content, how do you feel? I completely agree. What we do here, this is content. We argue that television and streaming, that's content, but a film, even something like Mortal Kombat, is a work of art. You have hundreds of people getting together, from the carpenters to the grips to the cinematography team to the actors to the writers to the makeup to the costume, all the way up to the director and the producers, working on making this work of art. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be silly, it could be thoughtful. to call that content immediately on its face, to me, devalues the hard work that's gone into it.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
I don't
think
find it
that's
to
an
be a
interest-
pretentious statement. I find it to be a respectful statement from someone who deeply, deeply, deeply loves the art of cinema.
And you
Then
can
the
tell. 'cause-
others, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, and you can tell when you read through the essay, that's kind of where he starts and ends it, because the middle is all about how he personally took in Fellini and how he had a relationship with him in later years and where he was in his life, seeing a lot of these movies when he was younger. And I think he's doing something that was a little bit confusing if you just skim through it, where he's comparing a lot of those things from then to now, which is, you can't do a one-to-one comparison. This is why you have so much vitriol flying around all the time on the internet, because it's like that doesn't work. You can't do a one-to-one comparison, because where you were in the 60s is not where we are in 2021.
Sure.
Like, it's just you can't do that, literally. And he brings up a point in somewhere in there where it's like, I think the only thing that's been a disservice and that's been a very big, and you touched on it a little, is that definition of cinema, because you see what a high regard he holds it in. And I think that goes back to the conversation that he had about Marvel, where he said it's not cinema. And I think that's different, because what you just broke down, it very much is.
Although, to be fair to his points on Marvel, he said they're not cinema, they're theme park rides. And I would say they're both.
Yeah.
I think the problem is the inference that calling it a theme park ride is a bad thing. I fucking love theme park rides.
Right.
They're a blast, which superhero movies can be.
Yes.
The other side of this whole debate to me is an appreciation for older cinema. Look, if you don't like or have an interest in old cinema, that's fine. I don't care. I prefer when people have an open mind to experiencing different things, but the notion of preservation of cinema, I think, is vital, because as we're increasingly getting away from physical media, which, don't get me started on that, now all of these movies are basically housed on various streaming services. And there's a lot of movies that if you don't own an out-of-print DVD or Blu-ray, you can't watch. You can't pay money to rent them on Amazon. They're not streaming on Netflix or Mubi or the Criterion, whatever it is. We're so caught up in bringing together these streaming services, and his point about algorithms really spoke to me.
Yes, agreed.
Versus curation, and that's the point to me that deserves no ire. It's like on Netflix, if I watch, I'm trying to think of something, Enola Holmes, right? Then the algorithm's going to start recommending to you other films aimed at younger audiences. You may never know that Malcolm and Marie is on Netflix. It may never show up. Sure. If you didn't know to search for it, it'll never come up on your suggested things. I haven't seen Malcolm and Marie. I'm not advocating it one way for another. I just picked a film that's radically different in stone, which is style plus tone. Stone from Enola Holmes. Whereas Eric, if you have someone actively curating, there's a computer can never replace the human mind. So
Eric,
I don't know
about some of this.
Well, it's just like we're talking about the algorithm. Like, for example, my wife has successfully turned my Netflix account into nothing but documentaries about murder mysteries. That's all we get.
You guys don't have different profiles?
No.
You should.
Oh, my wife and I have different profiles. So, yeah.
I don't want to go rebuild everything, but
well, fair, but
it would take a whole 20. What's the line from Scott Pilgrim? Do you know how long it took to get all the contact information? Like 2 hours.
But I mean, when you read Scorsese's article, he's not trying to ruffle feathers or anything. He is a man talking about something he loves. Like, it's like, my dad, when he talks about baseball, like how it used to be, because my dad grew up in New York in the 50s and 60s, so he remembers putting on this Sunday best to go see the Yankees play. And like when we go to a game now, he likes seeing the game, but he knows it's not the same anymore because of how times have changed and how it's taken away some of that love with it. With the beginning of the article, where he's like talking about like, I could go from this theater and see this one, I have to go to this theater to see that. Like, I wish I could have an experience like that where I could just travel around and see like all these small different films, but that's not the business now anymore. And I get like what he loves isn't there anymore, and he wants to preserve it. And I get that, and I respect that about him.
if he had said something like, modern movies are terrible compared to what they used to be, we just need to go watch Fellini, which is what it seems like a lot of people boiled it down to, and that's not what he's saying at all. In fact, I think Scorsese continues to love all sorts of, like, he wrote an essay about Ari Aster's Midsummer in the director's cut Blu-ray release of it. So this is not a man who is not still engaging and loving new cinema.
And I think you can even have a larger discussion. I very much agree that the algorithms and that you're a lot of times what you're seeing in the titles, you don't know the depth and the scope of what these streaming services are actually providing you. And I think you then get into preservation of film, which is what Mike was saying over here. Where to go?
I like the way HBO Max is laid out, where if you click on a genre, you can literally scroll through every film they have in that genre.
Yes.
Whereas Netflix, there is theoretically a way to do that, but that's not the easy way the UI is laid out. On your main Netflix screen, it'll say like critical darlings or thrillers, and then there's like 20 movies listed there.
You have to go to
search. You have to go to search. You have to go down to the genre, pull it up, and even the way it's laid out is not organized. HBO Max is alphabetized, whereas Netflix is still building its genre by algorithm compared to what's popular and what you may have watched already on the platform. That does a disservice to all the discoveries that are available that no one will ever find unless they know to look for it.
Yeah, I love what HBO Max does with their interface.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a great.
I even like how they even break it down. Like, here's Studio Ghibli. Here's this. Like, if you want to go,
I don't think they have the breadth of content yet, but I would say HBO Max might be my favorite streaming service right now.
As far as like user interface goes, I would say yes, because when you I can't say this for gospel, but when you pull up Netflix, you have trending today. You have My List, which is even sometimes hard to find, and then you have continued watching. Literally everything else is going to be something that they're putting an algorithm to, so they can literally tip the finger on the scale. And you could scroll through the same, I'll call it roughly 100 to 150 movies or titles. And then as opposed to doing that, there could be 2,000 on there, and that you're never going to see 80 to 90% of those.
You can see the same movie on Netflix in 5 different lists.
Oh yeah, I would rather have 1,000 films that are carefully curated on a streaming service than 10,000 movies that you only see 1,000 of them because an algorithm, you can't find the other 9,000 anyways. I can't tell you how many times there's a new movie coming. Like, one that comes to mind, Tiger Tail. Do you guys remember that movie from last year? A Netflix movie directed by I can't remember his name. He was the co-creator of Master of None.
You say
Tiger Tail. And it was a lower budget, relatively independent film about Asian American Alan Yang. Thank you. About his Asian American experience.
Gotcha.
And I saw countless people saying it's not showing up anywhere on my Netflix home screen, whereas something like Outside the Wire, the new action movie that came out in January on Netflix, was everywhere. So even by that decision, the way that the algorithm is coded, if you've never expressed interest in independent cinema or foreign cinema on Netflix, we're not going to show you our new release.
Yeah.
Honestly, if they have a new release that they have either picked up to distribute or funded from the get-go, day one it comes out, everyone's Netflix should say, this is new today, which is what HBO Max does or Disney Plus does. Shouldn't be hidden. Just because you haven't watched a title before.
I think that's kind of where you have to think about a lot of these terms that are kind of put together, and then you get like word salad when you're getting content, when you're getting curation, and you're getting, what was the other big one that he brought up? Streaming. So you have to think about a lot of that, and I like curation, and it wouldn't surprise me to see like somebody pick up on this and then like Time Warner Classic Movies or Turner Classic Movies, like literally taking Scorsese and being like, hey, you want to curate these classic movies, tell us what we need to put on a streaming service. And I would love to see that, so that right now there's literally the algorithms are dictating there's
stuff like Mubi and Criterion Network. There's a few that are more curated, but those have been failing, and they can't sustain.
That's the point as well. That's where content comes in, because at the end of the day, these are still businesses, and they're still going to make decisions based on what's going to make them money. And I think that's one of the things that, I don't want to say Scorsese is losing in the translation, but he is speaking from such a place of love and such a place of heart that it's not necessarily a popular point of view. And he's saying that like these parts of cinema and these films should be held and regarded. And most people aren't going to disagree with him. They're going to disagree that they can't have that algorithm that's like giving.
This is a very interesting comparison, and curation is on the upswing. What do we think those subscription boxes are sending recipes and clothing? Although for what it's worth, I know nothing about subscription boxes.
It's very
so the one point of all of this that I could understand someone mildly poking fun at Scorsese for is his last film, The Irishman, was funded and released on Netflix, and Killers of the Flower Moon, which we talked about, is being funded and distributed by Apple. I do think Killers of the Flower Moon will have a wider theatrical release than The Irishman did, but he needs these rich tech streaming companies to fund these both of these movies at $200 million budgets.
Yeah.
Paramount, who did his Paramount is struggling so much, who did his last couple movies, they can't give him $200 million to go make these movies that are, as close to an artistic sure thing as you can get, but not necessarily a commercial play.
Right.
And that lends itself
Although
a little
with
bit
Leo in it, that's you're doing better
Leo and
than not having Leo.
De Niro. It lends itself a little bit to what he was saying at the end of the article, where he was struggling to find distro for Fellini for some of the projects he was taking on at the end of his life. And that's one of the unfortunate parts of this, where he's still trying to function in a business that's not holding the same principles, that's not having the same priorities for film that he has. So whereas you could take any amount of auteurs working today, you could take a Scorsese, you could take a Nolan, you could take a Villeneuve, and you could say all this, but like without those kind of fundings, like where are they going to be and how are they going to have to struggle? It was different when you were literally looking at the turn of the century and getting into the golden age of filming, versus now the monster that it has become. That, we sit here and we talk, there's a reason that there are so many other industries around it, and that's where I think the content part of the conversation comes in, because like you said, Max, like you can break anything down to, technically right here, we're not creating anything. We're having a discussion, we're recording our discussion, and this is content for our channel, and
we're making a small amount of money on it
for our entire network, sure. But I mean, the three of us we're here for free out of the kindness of our hearts, because
it's fun.
Yes.
Yeah, right. If I wasn't talking about it with you, I'd be talking to my mirror, and my mirror's tired of me. It's like, get the fuck out of here.
I already heard that. Stop fucking telling me the same thing.
You don't talk to your dogs like I do?
No, I do.
Right.
I talk to my wife also, and this is the response I get most of the time.
Yep.
Again with the shit.
My wife too. So
she's over here nodding her head. Yep.
That's what I think we have to.
I'd like to make one. Oh, please. Sorry.
No, I was going to say real quick. We can't forget that Scorsese is one of those people who has been lucky enough to really just do what he's been working for 50 years in this industry, doing what he loves. He's going to have a different opinion than us. No, I refuse to get paid in exposure.
I will not get paid. No,
that's really
pay
funny.
People what they're worth.
We know, Matt. We all know. All of us here, at one point or another, have been paid in exposure, and there's a point where it's acceptable, and there's a point where it's not.
One time, I was paid in exposure, and the person wildly misunderstood what exposure was. If you catch my drift.
Hey.
Yeah, exactly. The last thing I want to say, and I'm sorry if this offends anyone, but the people who, so in my opinion, wildly misinterpreted what he was saying and took it on as an attack on them, I think that says more about their mindset than it does about Scorsese.
I think that is, and we touched on this a little bit last week with the toxic fandoms. That says a lot about people in general. I
think it speaks to insecurity to a certain point, which I can relate to, that I understand, but it also is that toxic entitled mindset where, oh, well, if you're not loving the same thing I'm loving and in the same way, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, is I think that's what I brought it up a little bit earlier when we first started talking about this, is a lot of the times we're living in a black and white, especially on social media. It's a yes or a no. And that's not how it works. It's literally, especially with this essay, it's shades of gray. I don't think he's coming out saying that like streaming services, I don't think legally he can say streaming services are bad because they're financed his last 2 movies.
I mean, he could, but
I mean, it'd be like shooting.
There would
himself.
be ramifications.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you're taking that it evolved into an argument over whether or not classic cinema had value. And I before we get too far away from it, before we wrap up, there was a friend of mine, a female filmmaker, where she was like, I understand a lot of people devaluing classic cinema. She's like, a lot of times it's very racist, a lot of times. And she's like, I've made a conscious effort to imbibe a lot of classic cinema, and I've chosen to work through it and to really appreciate it for what it is, that's a super admirable thing for someone to do.
And that is an undeniable point, that there is plenty of classic cinema,
the stone of cinnamon,
classic Cinnabon shops. Classic movies that for better or worse reflected a different society and hold different values than we hold today. And some of them are too problematic to enjoy, and others you can appreciate while also recognizing the problem. So that I won't deny, but there's also tons of racist shit in movies today too. It's not like we stopped being racist.
Right.
So to say new movies are better than old movies because old movies are racist and misogynistic, and that never stopped, honey. Sorry.
It's still happening right now.
Yeah. But I saw that argument too. So it's like, I don't know how we got from point A to point Q2. You know what I mean? Like,
it's the internet. People can argue about anything, but it's just one of those things.
I would just advocate to have an open mind and respect the notion that even if it's not for you, it's worth being preserved and maintained, because 50 years from now, you're going to want people to be preserving and maintaining Joker or whatever your favorite movies of recent times are.
Sure. And that's honestly one of the things I really respected speaking about Warner Brothers, which would be very much in the same conversation. They will still release old classic cartoons with Bugs Bunny, with Daffy Duck, with them cross-dressing, doing all these things, and they will show them unedited. And there's a disclaimer in front of it. They're like, we know not all of this aged well. We know there are some things in here that no one is proud of. However, we think it's more of a disservice to edit these and change how things were. And
I remember when the Jazz Singer first came on Blu-ray, which was the first ever talkie. Al Jolson is in blackface in that movie. And it was in a digibook. Do you know what a digibook is?
No.
It's a type of Blu-ray case where when you opened it, this side was like a booklet built into the stitching, and then this side was plastic. So the first page of the booklet was a disclaimer about how, this does not reflect the current values of, I want to say Warner Brothers, but whatever distribution company. However, this is a time capsule. It does not, we don't condone these views, but we felt to present it as it was, as a historical artifact.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things Scorsese, I think he's just worried about losing the feeling that he had. I think he looks at a lot of the landscape as it is now, and you can see a lot of it as a business. We had a big long conversation last week about toxic fandoms and how more money was poured into a movie that more or less flopped. So when you think about these kind of things, like,
well, we don't really know. You're talking about The Irishman?
No, I was talking about Justice League.
Let's see. Oh, right.
Because Justice League did not make back to
Justice League. So I'm still baffled that the first ever movie to feature Batman and Superman wasn't a smash hit. Well, no, I guess
the first one was.
Batman vs Superman was, I guess, second ever. Excuse me.
Yes. So go ahead.
I just also I think this pandemic year has also been easier to feel detached from cinema because we're not going to the theaters because we're watching everything on our TV through streaming services.
That's part of the experience. And I think I remember earlier either this week or last week, I know you and I know Chris were doing, there was someone was like, there's no good cinema before 1975, and people were giving 4 picture examples.
Oh, I just picked 4 movies from 1974.
See, yeah, just 1974. But there's a lot of history out there. And as I said last week with art, art is subjective. It's what you want it to be. It's what you see in it. So there's a lot out there. take the time to watch some classic cinema.
Just have an open mind.
Right. Like, I remember when my dad made me start watching some classic cinema, like the black and whites, because I refused to watch that stuff. But then, like, when I finally sat down and watched stuff with him, then you gain that appreciation. You could see through that different lens. Then that, spawns other things. Just give it a chance. Have the open mind, like Maxwell said.
Yeah.
Be cool, my babies.
There's a lot. It's one of those things too where I'm trying to be better personally. It's one of those things we talked about, not necessarily accountability, but we talked about really like letting things marinate. We try not to knee-jerk reaction, at least Eric and I here on the podcast. And that's one of the things I want to do going forward. I want to make sure we can have these conversations because I feel like there's been too much of like just throwing matches in tinderbox houses. Like there's way too much of yes and no's.
I disagree, and here's why.
Well, you know what? We're not friends anymore. So, good night, Max. Just kidding. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, take the time. Like, I'm really bad about like reacting to things. I need to like take time and read them and be like, I know this is where I stand and my opinion on it. So I'm guilty of it too. But especially when it comes to movies, I think wrapping up, Scorsese he just loves film. He loves cinema. I think he's having a definition that is very personal to him. And when people are taking it out of context and not really looking at the whole scope of what he's trying to put across, then you're going to get people confused and they're going to be like, classic cinema is the only cinema.
In 20 or 30 years, someone's going to write a very similar article about Scorsese.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And
what that filmmaker meant to him.
Nate, this is what we're going to do going forward. It's going to be the anti-hot take approach. We're going to sit down. There's going to be no hot takes where people are going to come at us because they're going to be like, wow, that was a nice, respectful conversation. And
it never hurts to actually read the article.
It never hurts to read the article, and it never hurts to ask for clarification either. Because if you are confused, ask. Like,
right. If you're hearing different things from different people, go to the source.
Yeah. And, there's nothing wrong with being a genuinely inquisitive, inquiring mind. Like there's only something wrong with making a conclusion with incomplete information.
The more you know.
Well, I feel rambled. How do you guys feel?
I feel good.
We have stuff. I can do housekeeping now because
housekeeping. Yay!
It's one of those things where we have lots of other stuff, and I think Max is just happy he doesn't have to do it. So, as we said before, this is the thing that happens. It happens at noon on Saturdays, noon Pacific time, so 3 p.m.
Eastern Standard Time.
Yes. So that's what's happening, Saturday. Is this? Oh, I think this is tomorrow.
Yep.
So
although there is a Schmodown pay-per-view event tomorrow. So the time is TBD.
Yes.
Look to the PJC on Twitter at PJC Network for the exact timing of that tomorrow afternoon.
Gotcha. And then I believe there's a double feature coming up on Monday.
Monday.
That one.
And the fun thing about these movies, Eddie the Eagle and Cool Runnings, is both of these take place at the same year Winter Olympics. So it was happening at the same time at the same place.
That's fun.
And both are on Disney Plus.
Yes,
Indeed.
Which is I think that was intentionally planned. That was another thing I was double checking. I'm like, is it this Monday? So I'm glad Max was here because if Max wasn't here, I'm just for those of you on the audio.
I legitimize. Yes. And Sunday night we do our show, The Unwind.
Yes, is that this one?
And finally, this week we're going to be talking theme parks.
Finally, I think this has been in the works for a few weeks because there's just been.
It got delayed by the Super Bowl, and then it got delayed by Valentine's Day, and now finally we're going to hang out and talk about theme parks.
If anyone
might join that one.
Yeah. If anyone wants if anyone wants to support us on Patreon, you can do that. You can go to we don't have the website on here. Max, what's the website?
Patreon.com/ the PJ Campbell Network, I think.
PJ Campbell Network. Okay. And that's our old logo too. So it's actually the Pajukin, the PJ Campbell Network.
Yeah. Just go to patreon.com/ the PJ Campbell Network. See if there's a tier that's right for you.
Yes. So you can go support us there. Do all those things. If you're on audio, sorry, those were a bunch of title cards in there for other things on the PJCN. Find them all on Twitter because we all tweet them out all the time. Max, where do people find you? when you're not
You
here.
can follow me on Twitter and Letterboxd at Cinemaxwell, Instagram at Cinemaxwell Inc. And you can find me most nights on the Pajukin.
Here.
Pajukin!
Eric, where do people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at handsome_cheese, or you can find me here on the Pajunkin.
I like that the dip there, the joking. And you can find me here occasionally. We're doing a weekly show now, as opposed to last week where we decided that on air. So we'll be here next week, which is a lot of fun. I'm happy we get to do this again, and hopefully we can get in even more people just to sit around and talk about movies, because this is what we like to do, and honestly, this is what we normally do. Just in our own chat, we just sit around and we talk about movies, and I'm happy to do it in front of a camera with these fine gentlemen. So find me on various social medias at Ohhi Dan Nye, OHHI Dan Nye, all one word. And yeah,
Hi, Dan Nye.
thanks for thanks for coming out, and we will see you next week. Ramble on.
Anchors away.